going to talk comic books, as a free comic book day is coming up on May the 5th. Circle the calendar, circle the date, because you can get your free comic book. Maybe from this guy, Remi LeClair, the manager at the Comic Hunter, the Comic Book Hunter. I read your hat.
Yeah, it's just Comic Hunter.
Comic Hunter it is. So I will scratch that out.
There's no book.
It will be Comic Hunter. Yeah. And so
you did
Comic
read the
Hunter.
hat.
I did read the hat, which was the smart move, really. And I'm glad you wore it, because it's a great view of the logo as well. Comic Hunter, May the 5th, which is a Saturday. Line up and get your free comic book. And we emphasize line up because it's been crazy.
Yeah, last year we had over 200 people in line at the door at 8. We showed up at 6, there was already people in line. So,
yeah. So what is your best advice for someone who is going to come out to Free Comic Book Day? What would you say is the best idea for that?
I guess it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking to get the free stuff and that's really it, you're coming out with the kids, be there in the morning, maybe not necessarily first in line. If you're I guess, yeah, it depends. Like, first 100 people through the door get a gift bag. And then we have a lot of the free comics to give away, but we run out every year, generally noonish, mid-afternoon. So it depends if you're doing that. Now, if you're looking to just shop, because we have sales the whole day, we're open open early and then regular hours the rest of the day. If you're looking to shop, maybe come a bit later. Like, depends what you're looking for, right?
When the traffic's kind of died down a little bit.
Yeah. So we get a lot of that. We'll get people who show up early and they'll get the free books and then they'll come back in the afternoon for the shopping, and it just doesn't stop the whole day. So
no. So it's a very wild day. So you and your staff will just be there. You'll be on your feet the entire time.
Yeah, it's full, all hands on deck. We got some volunteers. We get there's the East Coast Comic Expo coming up in a couple of weeks, and they volunteer to help us and help promote their convention. So it's just as many bodies as I can have, just guiding people and talking to people, because it's just a fun day too. So
so Free Comic Book Day, I mean, the name says free comic book.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that will be available for the people who want to participate in Free Comic Book Day?
Well, the publishers all produce a book to give, like a lot of the publishers. There's 50 or 60, I forget the exact count, but they get produced to give away. So we buy them at cheap, and then we give them away. So Marvel has a couple of books and DC has a couple of books, and they're generally meant to either preview what's coming out or something that's been hot. So in Marvel's case, they're doing stuff about the new Spider-Man book that's coming out later this summer, a new #1, and then with a new creative team, and then they're doing something about the Infinity War to tie into the Avengers movie. I forget what DC's doing, but Archie's going to have a book for the kids, and all the different publishers. So there's going to be more adult-oriented stuff and more kid-friendly stuff, and really, if you're reading any comics, there's going to be something there for you.
So a lot of these kind of tie in with, as you said, what's hot right now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even necessarily mean comic books. That could also be movies. That could also be other properties.
Yeah. The bigger companies know what they're doing at this point. Some years I've been like, why did you do this? But whatever. But this year they're on point. Yeah. I think people are just happy to get a comic to read, and the people who are there for the deals are, they're not. Some of them don't even go looking. They're just going right to the deal table.
So just to cover it the one final time, Free Comic Book Day, line up, get your free comic book. That's basically how this works?
Yeah, we open at 8 a.m. Instead of a regular 10 a.m. And yeah, we're going to have a tent set up with where all the stuff is going to be. There's going to be a food truck for food if you're stuck there for a few hours or you want to hang out for a few hours and you want to eat. Weather permitting, we're going to have some stuff happening outside. A spray paint artist is going to be doing live spray painting, but obviously if it's raining that can't happen. And then we're going to have a bunch of local guests, local artists, local writers who are just going to be sort of promoting their stuff and giving away or talking about their stuff or what's coming up.
Very cool. So who locally will be there?
So we have Nick Bradshaw and Danica Brine and Larry Higgins, who does a book called Niobe. We're going to have Adam Atkinson, who does a book called Psychosis. We're going to have a local crafts, Nort Mail. He does chain mail, dice bags, and crafts and stuff like that. We have a few more. I'm still setting up a few things. We had someone actually cancel today, so I'm still trying to figure it out. But generally, I have a dozen guests.
So more to come. We can just tease that.
Yeah,
more to come other than that. Let's talk about Nick Bradshaw, because he's with Marvel right now. and that is crazy to have someone locally who's connected with one of the big names.
Yeah, he's sort of been around. Like he started doing his self-publishing, like all the other people who are going to be there, and worked his way up doing stuff for Dynamite. He was doing Army of Darkness stuff, and then he left comics and came back when when Marvel came knocking, I guess. And he's done a bunch of stuff for DC in the last few years. And now he's back at Marvel, and I think he's more of a free agent because he was signed exclusive to Marvel for quite a few years now, and I think he's sort of floating around. But he's actually going to be doing, there's Amazing Spider-Man 800 is coming out soon, so a big benchmark issue, and I believe he's got a short story in there, so it'll be his first interior art in a while because he's just been doing covers. He's sort of become known. A lot of the guys, they get to a point where they're popular enough that they can sort of live off the cover money because it's a bit more than the pages because a bit more work goes into it, and you can generally take a few more days to do it as opposed to people who are trying to put out a book every month. They need to be doing a page every day, and some people don't like to work at that pace.
Yeah, it can be quite a frantic pace. Worth noting, by the way, for those who may not be familiar, Nick Bradshaw, that is Claudette's son, by the way. That is worth noting in terms of local celebrity, I suppose.
He was a celebrity a bit before, at least by proxy of his mother.
Yeah, exactly. Also worth noting, you say Marvel and worked with DC a bit, and now back with Marvel. Another big Marvel writer just went to DC in order to write Superman. Yeah,
Brian Michael Bendis, who was for the last... He's been at Marvel for 20 years, 21 years, 19 years, but for the last 15 of those, he was one of the key Marvel writers. If there was an event happening at Marvel, he was writing it. He wrote Avengers, he wrote all the big books. He just finished off a run on Iron Man and a few, he's just sort of jumped ship and he's done a bit of everything. He's done the X-Men, but if there was a big thing happening, he was at the center of it or part of the team that was sort of deciding where Marvel Comics were going. And a few months ago, he out of nowhere said that he's leaving and he's going to DC. And even for a few months there, everyone knew he was going to DC, but no one knew what he was going to do. So now, I guess it's been a few months, but he's going to be his. Action Comics number 1000 just came out, which is the 80th anniversary of Superman, and a big number that they could promote. But it also has the first story by Brian Michael Bendis as one of the backup stories, and it's leading into what he's going to be doing, which is taking over Superman and Action Comics. So writing, the core of DC, really.
Right. So just comparatively, is this like someone leaving the Canadians and signing with the Maple Leafs? Is this like someone leaving the Red Sox and signing with the Yankees? Is it that big?
It's pretty big. Like I would say it's the biggest in a long time. Like you always see these lists online, like different comic websites talking about the biggest people who've jumped ship. And in the 70s, you had Jack Kirby, who'd worked with Stan Lee, who left for DC, and you had John Byrne, who'd done all the X-Men stuff in the 70s and 80s, and he left for DC. And there seems to be a lot of leaving.
Seems to be a theme, leaving for DC. What are they doing over there?
But I want to say in the last 20, 25 years, it's got to be certainly one of the bigger ones. Grant Morrison left DC for Marvel to do X-Men probably about 15 years ago now, and that was a big one. That was probably one of the last ones. Like, I honestly can't, I've been doing this for 13 years, and I want to say it's the biggest since I've been there. Like, everyone sort of, like, exploded. Like, what is going to happen? What's going on?
What is going to happen? Of course, you are connected to that scuttlebutt, reading everything that's up there online and everything. It seems like when writers are leaving, I mean, obviously you're leaving in a way. Usually, it's not laterally. Usually it's you're going to take over something big.
Yeah.
So
in his case, for sure. Like, there's no way he wasn't going to leave and just go write, some little book or do, the media attention is warranted to what he's going to be doing. So there was a lot of people thought he was going to do Batman. Honestly, like that's where the rumors were headed, that he was going to take over Batman. But Superman is just. It turns out,
it's Action 1000 and it's Superman, and I know we just showed it. Maybe we can show it again. And with 1,000 for Action, how big is 1,000 comic books in a run?
Well, it doesn't really happen, and DC sort of like messed up the run because they started back at number 1 after number 900 or 800 and something, and then did 52 of those, and then restarted with the numbering. They're like, oh yeah, we got 1,000 coming up. Let's go back.
So what you're saying is maybe they cheated the numbering a little bit?
Well, they do have 1,000 for sure.
Okay,
but
they just forgot logistically. They just
like,
forgot to count some.
Yeah. So not many books have reached 1,000. Like there's a few magazine like weekly books in the UK that have always kept their numbering, but this is, I think it's one of the first North American it's the first superhero book for sure.
Yeah, so this is really big.
Yeah,
So it's huge that they get a guy, they poach a guy, from Marvel to go to DC to write it, and Action gets their 1,000, which is huge. And it's Free Comic Book Day, which is coming up on May the 5th. You get to go and check out this guy ahead of me. Thank you so much for joining us, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
We will have you on again with your comic book scuttlebutt.
Probably this time next year.
We'll talk some more, probably this time next year. So be sure to check it out. That is at Comic Hunter. And go line up early if you want your free comic book. That is on May the 5th. That is a Saturday. So be sure to check it out. They open at 8 a.m.